Professionals in Residence, which is sponsored for us by Wigdor. And we're very delighted this afternoon to welcome the Right Honourable the Lord Bilimoria, who, as everybody knows, is famous in particular for founding Cobra Beer, but he does have lots of professional experience to share with us this afternoon. His first degree was in commerce, and he then qualified as a chartered accountant and went on to study the law, so he's got the full gamut of commercial and professional experience to talk to us all about. And of course he's held fantastically interesting roles, which I'm sure you'd like to ask him about, as President of the CEI in the UK. He has been the Chancellor of Birmingham University. He has been President of the UK Council on International Student Affairs, amongst other things, and not to mention, of course, Cobra Beer, and he sits in our very own House of Lords. So he's got an amazing amount of life experience, and the story of how he became an entrepreneur is inspiring for all of us. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Lord Bilimoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Master, for that warm introduction. And in Parliament, I would have to declare my interests. So I declare my interest straight away. I graduated from the other place, and I'm an honorary fellow of my college there, Sydney, Sussex, and our sister college, St John's, is across the road. I'm also an ambassador for the Cambridge Judge Business School, which I chaired for 5 years. And over here, I'm an honorary fellow at Kellogg College, a Bynum Tudor Fellow at Kellogg College. And my fellow fellows include His Majesty the King. And I'm also a fellow of the university at the Centre for Corporate Reputation at the Saïd Business School over here as well. So I'm very well balanced between, as a famous Indian economist said, if you have 1 foot on cold ice and you have another foot on hot coals, on average you're comfortable. So I have 1 foot on light blue and another foot on deep blue, so that makes me a true blue. So I'm going to whiz through very quickly the Cobra Beer story. And then I want to leave as much time as possible for a discussion. And the discussion can be about entrepreneurship. It can be about Parliament, politics, House of Lords. I have very strong views. I'm an independent crossbench peer. 18 years I've been in the House of Lords. I was the 3rd youngest peer when I joined. I'm still one of the younger peers. Our average age is 71. And so being an independent crossbench peer, I can say what I want to. So I'll be very open with you, I can assure you. And we can also talk about academia, universities, international students, or geopolitics, whether it's India, American elections, what's happening in the Middle East, Ukraine. I've been involved in all those areas. So that we can do for the Q&A. So a quick whistle-stop Cobra Beer story, which I've titled Boldness in Business. Duke of Wellington, fortune favours the brave. Then the current Duke of Wellington sits with me on the crossbenches of the House of Lords, and I'm a governor of Wellington College, the school that our older daughter Zara attended as well. The best lecture I've ever attended was Professor Clay Christensen at Harvard Business School, where that was the last lecture before I formally became an alumnus, and his message was very clear. What is the purpose of your life? And I'll ask all of you that question right now. Have you stopped and thought, what is the purpose of your life? And linked to that, how will you measure your life? And he's written this great book about how do you measure your life, including the time he was here as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, and his time at Harvard. And it's a brilliant book. And I would urge you all to just think about those 2 things. Purpose and how will you measure life. Very individual, no right or wrong answer. It's all about these words, I think, building a business. The perspiration part is 100% true. There is no shortcut to the hard work in building a business from scratch. This is one word that sums up entrepreneurs more than any other word, guts. You've got to have the guts to do it in the first place, but more importantly, you've got to have the guts to stick with it when others would give up. And I've nearly lost my business 3 times, and it's can you get through those crises when literally it's existential, and you've got to have the boldness and the guts to go through the other side. Most business ideas, this is a business school term, Blue Ocean Strategy. The best illustration of this is Canadian street artist who I met, Guy Le Libertaire, who came up with this idea of a performance that combined being a street performer with gymnastics, acrobatics, ballet, opera, theater, circus, put it all together. Cirque du Soleil. How many of you have seen a Cirque du Soleil performance? Yeah, it's a $1 billion business. $1 billion business. Every element of Cirque du Soleil has existed in most of them for centuries. And yet no one put them together in the way that he did into what is now a $1 billion business. And it's usually a very simple, big idea. My idea for Cobra Beer was when I was a student, and it was when I was at Cambridge reading law. It was not a eureka moment. I did not jump out of a bath in Cambridge and run naked down the streets. It was an idea that evolved through many business ideas, as either you're passionate about something and you hate something, or you're dissatisfied as a consumer and you think you can do something differently and better. In my case, I hated fizzy lagers, and I love English ale. Fizzy lagers are horrible on their own, and when you go for food, spicy Indian food, the ideal drink is a cold, refreshing lager, but not if it's fizzy and gassy and bloating. And ale drinkers love curry. Everyone loves curry, yeah. But they hate fizzy lagers. And their ale doesn't go with Indian food. It doesn't go with any food because the ale is too heavy and too bitter. So that's when the idea of, well, why don't I produce a beer that has the refreshment of a lager, the smoothness of an ale combined, that is smooth and easy to drink and balanced, that accompanies all food, including Indian food, and has a globally appealing taste. That's the idea for Cobra Beer. Very simple idea. Thing is to put it into practice. Serendipity, one of the professors that I work with at the Judge Business School, Rt Hon, defines serendipity as seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. Seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. And the best definition of luck that I've ever heard, luck is when determination meets opportunity. So the two are linked. If you're not determined, you won't even see the opportunity. And I visualize it like waves that go past you in life. If you're determined, you might just catch one of those waves. If you're not determined, those waves will go past you all your life. And there's another definition of luck. There's a very famous Indian spiritual guru called Sadhguru. Yeah, some of you may have heard of Sadhguru. He has hundreds of millions of followers in India. And I'm lucky I got to know Sadhguru. I hosted him at Birmingham when he came to set off on a tour after COP26 the following year. And as CBI president, I was in COP26. The whole of COP26, climate change, net zero, nobody mentioned the soil. And he said, I'm going to raise awareness of saving the soil, that the soil needs to have at least 3 to 6% organic content. So I hosted him in Birmingham, message, then we set him off, Parliament Square, and he's one of these gurus who flies a helicopter, plays golf, rides a motorbike. And he set off on his motorbike from the UK to India overland. Phenomenal journey. And when we set him off in Parliament Square, the first thing we did in front of Mahatma Gandhi's statue, and I was on the committee when my friend Sajid Javid was the culture minister, we put up the statue of Mahatma Gandhi in Parliament Square. He went and paid his respects to Mahatma Gandhi, and then got on his bike, and I said, good luck, Sadhguru. And the best definition of luck that I've ever heard, Sadhguru, is when determination meets opportunity. He said, Karan, I like the definition, but I've got a better one. He said, Karan, luck is all about timing. If you are ready, but the market in the world is not ready, your idea won't work. The market in the world is ready, but you're not ready, it won't work. If you're ready and the market in the world is ready, that's timing, and your idea will work. So that's another definition of luck for you. This is Dr. Karyappa, who I started Cobra with. I had a lot of luck when we started. The introduction to the biggest private brewery in India, in Bangalore, who had the best brewmaster in India, biochemist, PhD from Prague University, did his internship with Pilsner Urquell, one of the most famous original Pilsners in the world, and knew everything about brewing. And the brewery there said, look, we don't make a beer that you're describing, this less gassy, extra smooth beer. Why don't you come to our brewery, we'll open the gates. And by the way, the brand name, you don't like any of our brand names. They offered me Pal's beer, with one of their best-selling beers, the name of a dog food here. They offered me another brand of theirs, best-selling beer called Knockout, with one boxer having flowed, another boxer, 8% alcohol strength. I said, A, we can't take an 8% alcohol strength beer. B, the name Knockout is not appropriate and will not be allowed by trading standards. Look, you choose your own brand name because you're going to fail. And when you fail, your brand will fail, not ours. We want the prestige of exporting beer to England. Look at that. Luck. My most valuable asset has been the Cobra Beer brand. If I had taken one of their brand names, I wouldn't be giving this lecture to you now. I would have been an agent or a distributor. Most valuable asset was a brand. And then they said, we'll open up our brewery, you work with our brewmaster, and we worked and created Cobra Beer from scratch with this delicate recipe. If we were made today, it would be called an ultimate craft beer. It's got malted barley, maize, rice, wheat, 3 varieties of hops, Bavarian hops. It's a very complex recipe to give it this delicate taste that it has. I mean, how many of you have tasted Cobra Beer, by the way? Thank you for your support. Thank you. Trust is one of the really important words. And my partner, Arjun Reddy, who I started, childhood friends, I trusted him totally. I mean, literally, I would have trusted Arjun with my life. And you can never do this on your own. Invariably, look at all the famous entrepreneurial stories. It's invariably partners who start. Now, the sad thing is they don't last. Bill Gates didn't last. Mark Zuckerberg didn't last. Steve Jobs didn't last. But you can't do it on your own. And Arjun, by the way, after 6 years, he decided, I had enough of this. This plane is never going to take off, and he left. And he said, I hate the weather in England. Went back to India. He now lives in America, running his own business, living his dream. And we're still, to this day, the best of friends. And I couldn't have done it without him. I trusted him. This word trust, one of my Harvard Business School professors, Frances Fry, described trust as a triangle. She said, to get trust from people, first point of the triangle, you've got to be authentic. Is it the real you? Second point of the triangle, logic. Do you have the professional capability to deliver what you're promising to deliver? And the third point of the triangle, empathy. Are you in it for yourself, or are you in it for them? So if you're authentic, you have the capability, and you're empathetic, you can get trust from people. And I think it's one of the most important things in life, let alone in businesses, to be able to get trust. I've told you about this complex recipe that we have, German beers. Are there any Germans over here? Very simple. That's all. A German beer cannot have any more than that. Ours is a much more complex recipe. And a mission. This was my mission right from the beginning, was to brew the finest ever Indian beer and make it a global beer brand. The thing about a mission is something you can measure at every stage in your journey. And I can say with pride, we are the finest ever Indian beer by miles. But global beer brand, it still has a way to go. It's always against all odds. In my case, starting a brand, unknown brand, Kingfisher, the biggest Indian beer brand, which this day has a 50% market share in India, had been available for 8 years in the UK. They were on draft in 3,000 outlets. Carlsberg, one of the most famous beer brands in the world, was in almost every Indian restaurant. And there I was with this unknown Indian brand from India with this pretty pathetic packaging in the early days, more expensive than the other beers, and big bottles, which they were not used to, the double-sized bottles of Cobra that you're probably used to. And we had to go against the odds and convert those obstacles into opportunities and go against the odds. And of course, by this stage, you know that nobody thinks you stand a chance. And your own family are the ones who want to protect you the most. My father, by now, had become Commander-in-Chief of the Central Army in India, and 350,000 troops under his command. And I used to go and see him from Bangalore whenever there was a break, when I was developing the product. And I said, Dad, isn't this great? My own business, entrepreneur, Cobra Beer. What are you doing? All this education. You're becoming an import-export wala. Get a proper job. He became my biggest fan once we succeeded. But, he meant well. The sad thing is most entrepreneurial ventures don't succeed. And it's tough. The Porter's Five Forces, famous Harvard Business School professor of market entry, I would have failed all 5. Fail, fail, fail. So that means, was Michael Porter wrong? Were the textbooks wrong? Is theory wrong? I should never even have tried. I shouldn't even have attempted according to the textbooks. And that's the thing about entrepreneurship, is you go against the grain and you just believe in an idea and go for it. 7 years we brewed it in Bangalore, exported to the UK. I then had to make the decision to carry on doing that or change. And this is where I give a TED talk. If you have 18 minutes to spare, look up this TED talk called Luck, Serendipity, and Sliding Doors, where I talk in my life, and this is not just about Cobra Beer, about my life, including my parents, the way they met, the way I met my wife, and this thing I'm going to tell you about, the points in your life where if you hadn't been in the right place, you hadn't met the person at that time, if you hadn't made that decision, your whole life would be different. And sometimes it's existential. So in my father's world, I'm an honorary group captain in the Royal Air Force. When you're in the services and if you're in battle, those decisions are life and death. Yeah, if you're a surgeon, life and death. But in business, it's your business surviving or not surviving. And this was one of those moments where Cobra Beer, my partner, had left. The year after he left, our sales doubled. Not because he left. Okay. I built a team, and the sales doubled in 1 year. My problems of importing Cobra Beer from India quadrupled. Bad quality beer, inconsistent quality beer. It became the biggest ever export beer out of India. The brewery, with all their efforts, just could not cope. They tried their best. And in the end, they said, look, we can't do any better than this. And we went to our wholesalers. Wholesalers said, you have only one option to brew it under license in the UK, which is what everyone else does. But if you do that, no one will buy your beer. You're an authentically imported beer from India. We won't buy the beer from you. Your consumers won't buy the beer from you. The restaurants won't buy the beer from you. So what do we do? But you're complaining about the quality. That's your problem. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then you make the decision. I learned this from the Indian restaurateurs in the beginning. When I say Indian restaurateurs, 2/3 of them are owned by Bangladeshis. And I learned very clearly from them. They said, look, we don't drink. If this beer is so fantastic, leave a couple of samples. Our regulars like it, we'll order. If our wider customers like it, we'll reorder. And they gave me a chance, and they put their customers first. They always put their customers first. And the only person who gave me an answer on this is the actual consumer. So we surveyed the consumers, and the consumers very clear. So what is it important to Cobra Beer? Is it the fact that it's imported from India? Or is it this extra smooth, less gassy taste? Or is it the recipe, an Indian recipe? Or is it the fact that it's a premium beer? What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, rank. Number one, most important to the consumer. Less gassy, extra smooth taste. Number 4, least important to the consumer by a long shot, imported from India. I'm brewing here. I switched my brewing to the UK. All my problems are over. World-class quality, world-class packaging at my doorstep. I could even do draft beer, which I couldn't do from India. So that lesson of always putting your consumer first. So by the way, how many of you love curry and eat curry regularly? Can I just see a show of hands? Yes, everyone. Do you expect it to be cooked in Delhi and flown over? We have the best Indian food in the world over here. I'm just starting a new brand, by the way, called, look out for this in the future, not available in Oxford yet, General Bilimoria's Canteen, named after my father, to prove this point in a big way. So then, from there, we brewed in Europe, and we now brew in Belgium. We also now brew in Serbia. Our non-alcoholic beer is made using vacuum distillation in Serbia. And Indian restaurants, we are in virtually all the Indian restaurants. There's some who don't sell Cobra. It bugs me, but anyway, we'll get there. But 100% is my target. And of course, now increasingly, there are almost 1,000 restaurants that sell outside Indian restaurants, Thai, Lebanese, and supermarkets everywhere. These are my 10 Ps of building a business. You can apply this to any institution, including Oxford University or even St. Cross College. So first, you've got to have a great product. In our case, super premium award-winning product in the right price. It can be a value for money. In my case, because it's super premium, it's more expensive. It's got to be available. I've just told you where it's available: restaurants, supermarkets, exports. And you've got to promote it. In the beginning, I couldn't even afford a branded beer glass. Now we have the full range of marketing, from advertising to social media to whatever. Anyone who studied marketing, there was some side business school MBA students here in the seminar earlier. They would recognize this as the 4 Ps of marketing. My extra 6 Ps. I'm a manufacturer. I chair the Manufacturing Commission in Parliament. Most important thing with your B2B, B2C manufacturer service is people. And here, universities, colleges, it's all about people. And finance, spelled PH. You can't do anything without the money. And I give lectures on how to raise money for a growing business. And it's tough. It's tough. I mean, it's really difficult. And no collateral to give, no security, unknown brand. It's really difficult to raise money. Passion. My slogan is follow your passion, not your pension. And I always tell any student, study a subject that you're good at and that you love. I tell people, go into a career that you're going to enjoy. Don't just go into a career because you think you're going to earn more money. And profit is not a dirty word. You have to make a profit. Okay, you can make a loss in the early years, but profit is essential. Partnership. And this is not business partner. This is an approach that you have, and St. Cross has this in a way. You have no high table. But it's how do you treat everyone as a partner? Your partner your accountants, your lawyers, your advertising agency, your customers, your suppliers, your employees, your shareholders, they're all partners. Different mindset. And people call it stakeholder capitalism, but I call it the partnership model. And finally, principles. It is better to fail doing the right thing than to succeed doing the wrong thing. So these 10 Ps you can apply. It's like a checklist. I quite often, my new business, General Bilimoria Canteen, I go through, have I got these 10 things right? Team, this is Sam Sotale, who's been by my right hand for over 30 years. People say I'm married more to him than to my wife. And without Samson's support, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So loyal team members is absolutely essential. Creativity. I was told throughout my childhood I was not creative because I was useless at art, useless at music. And it was only when I started business that I realized my most important skill as being an entrepreneur is the ability to be creative. And I'm very, very creative, and it's been suppressed through my whole youth. I just wish we would encourage our children from a young age to unleash that creative spirit within our children. And I tell you, everyone's got the ability to be creative. And whatever you do in your career after that, if you have that ability to be creative and innovative, I tell you, your productivity would increase hugely, our GDP growth would increase hugely. And I wish we could do more of that. And this country is great at it, by the way, phenomenally creative and innovative country. We could do so much more. This is just one example, these Cobra Beer smooth flow glasses. And then when we repackaged our beer the first time in a long time, so this was a long time ago, first consumer product in the world to convey its story visually as part of its packaging, where each icon stands for a stage in the Cobra Beer story. And you look at our bottles today, you will see a lot of these symbols are still very much there. King Cobra, the world's first double fermented beer with an ale yeast inside a beer in Belgium. Belgium's the best brewers, by the way. My head brewer for years has been a Belgian. Why, in a country where Belgium, beers are millennia old, famous beers? I mean, Stella Artois was founded in the 14th century. Why didn't they think of doing this? Putting an ale yeast into a lager. And it's phenomenal. Unpasteurized, 18-month shelf life, the ultimate craft beer, made like champagne, with the yeast still inside the bottle. And like champagne, we take the yeast out. Non-alcoholic beers are disgusting. We produce a really good one, the one with vacuum distillation produced in Serbia. This is the IPA. IPA's bitters, they don't go with Indian food. They tend to be too bitter. All these craft beers, these IPAs, they're too hoppy. They're too bitter. You struggle to finish one glass, let alone drinking them with food. I've actually produced one, took 3 years to develop, where it's an IPA that you can genuinely drink with food, and it's like Cobra, extra smooth and less gassy. So that's possible. This gluten-free beer we produced that tastes almost like a normal beer, but didn't work. There just wasn't enough of a demand for it. We thought there'd be a big demand. There isn't. So not everything succeeds. This is our Rt Hon. These are just some pictures of Cobra in action. Advertising. You can have fun with advertising. This is our first ever ad campaign, produced by Saatchi & Saatchi. Our spokesperson, Curryholic Dave. My name's Dave, and I'm a curryholic. The beer from Bangalore lets you eat more curry. The beer curryholics adore. It lets you eat more. The less gassy, more classy curryholics beer. And then the ads. Saatchi & Saatchi ad produced in India.
In India, we are famous for being ingenious. Take our Cobra bottled beer, brewed for a full flavor, but with less gas.
this was a time when we were making our beer in Poland, is when that ad was made. Then we had a film competition on ITV where we had for young, on the whole young, British filmmakers, we sponsored the blockbuster films every night. And these were the ads on either side of an ad break. So 5 seconds on either side when a commercial starts, 5 seconds commercial, 5 seconds throughout the whole movie. And each one of these was telling a story. And then we used to have the Cobra Vision Awards at the Curzon Mayfair. This is an example of one of them. So before the commercial break, commercial, after the commercial break. And that's our branding down there, giving our sponsorship profile. So you can have fun doing these things as well. So very effective. We've won 152 gold medals. I'm boasting, thank you, proud of it. We're one of the most awarded beers in the world. And to think in 2001, first time we entered, we won 1 gold medal. I've nearly lost my business 3 times, which I mentioned earlier on. The first time was to do with the Tandoori magazine crisis, when an article was written in the trade magazine by the editor. I was the owner, the publisher, part owner of the magazine, a free circulation magazine, and the industry got very upset because he criticized service in restaurants, rightly so. And then they were burning copies of Tandoori magazine in the streets, and then they said, well, we can keep burning the copies, they'll keep posting them for free every month. Oh, that current Bilimoria, he's the publisher and owns, let's boycott Cobra Beer. So we had a boycott of Cobra Beer through no fault of Cobra Beer whatsoever. Had my team in tears, and we eventually took 1 year. And at that stage, we'd opened up depots around the country. We had vans, we had salespeople around the country. We're employing, in those early days, 130 people. And I had to go down from 130 people, close down all the depots to 17 people, and just try and survive. And 1 year later, the Office of Fair Trading got involved. I nearly lost the business. And the restaurants then realized, look, we didn't, why would we do something to harm our own customers? And then we managed to get back. And we have a really close relationship with the industry now. But at that stage, nearly lost everything. The other one was in 2008 when the biggest drinks company in the world, Diageo, agreed to invest £30 million for 30% of Cobra Beer, which valued us at £100 million, put 1 director on our board, and in 5 years' time we would have had to sell out completely. We did the deal, and the due diligence was done. We had just signed the contracts. The team started integration. I went on holiday. Chief Executive Diageo went on holiday. He called me up while we were both away on holiday and said, we've had a change of mind. We've got cold feet. And they pulled out. We'd run out of money. We were depending on that finance. Luckily, I had an Indian bank as a plan B, and they gave me the money on a personal guarantee, and we saved the company. And literally 2 weeks later, Lehman's went bust, and the financial crisis started. And the Indian bank said if this had happened after Lehman's went bust, we would not have lent you the money. So A, having a plan B, B, luck. But C, crisis that came out of nowhere. And the third time was after the Great Recession, the financial crisis started, our biggest financier, big hedge fund, said sell the business. They were going through trouble. And it took us almost a year to sell the business. Couldn't sell the business. Cash became not just king, but emperor. And we managed to then sign a joint venture with Molson Coors, going through a painful restructuring process where once again I nearly lost the business, and that's a story in itself. So 3 times nearly lost the business. And we formed this joint venture with Molson Coors, including in India, had good culture, shared value, their family-controlled business with integrity. And then just before concluding, I want to talk about partnership with the community. It's not just what you do, but how you do it. We have our Cobra Foundation, our own charity. Very few companies have their own charitable foundations. And we donate lots of free beer to charitable causes. One of the most popular prizes is free beer for a year in auction prizes. It's a case of Cobra Beer per month, delivered to your doorstep. And that raises money for charities. We donate beers. I've literally donated millions of pounds of beer over these years. The Lord Mayor's Big Curry Lunch every year in the Guildhall, 2,000 people, and Cobra Beer is provided free, and we raise money for the Armed Forces charity. And we've done that every year since the Lord Mayor's Big Curry Lunch started. And this is another example, is Cobra Foundation Blue Water, where the profit from this water, 100% of it we donate to WaterAid for sanitation and clean water in South Asia, saving lives. At leadership, in the seminar discussion, we had a great discussion on transformational leadership. I think this is the big difference between a sort of big company, civil servant attitude is playing not to lose. Come up with an idea, let's find a way not to do it. Or let's think about it next year. Or let's put it in next year's plans. It's always putting it off. Whereas an entrepreneur's attitude is, let's do it now. Problem, solution, action, and playing to win. Desmond Tutu was a fellow of my College of Sydney, Sussex at Cambridge. He also was a fellow at Kellogg College, Bynum Tutor Fellow. And he was very close to Nelson Mandela. I said, what was so special about Nelson Mandela? He said he was a magnanimous leader. And then it's all about service leadership. You know, the Dalai Lama, when I met him, it's when he blesses you, you bump your head. He bumps your head against your head. And it's all about serving his people. And finally, what makes an extraordinary brand? So, you know, here we are in one of the world's extraordinary brands, Oxford University. What makes an extraordinary brand? And there's 6 criteria that my partners and I believe make an extraordinary brand. One is, tells a compelling story based on undeniable brand truth. In Cobra's case, it's that less gassy, extra smooth taste. That's our brand truth. That makes us the best accompaniment to any food anywhere in the world. Live by and refuse to compromise on your principles. Never take any shortcuts. As I said, better to fail doing the right thing than to succeed doing the wrong thing. Have an instantly recognizable and iconic look. You know, most people, if I ask you to close your eyes, you will be able to visualize what the Cobra Beer logo looks like, the colors, the yellows, the green. Deliver a unique, relevant, and consistent experience. I mean, this is really tough with a fast-moving consumer good like Cobra. I mean, we produce hundreds of millions of bottles and pints and cans a year. And you as a consumer expect everyone to taste exactly the same as the next one. It's so unfair. Life is unfair. With a bottle of vintage wine, you know, you could pay 100 bottles for a bottle of wine, and the next year it tastes different, and it's acceptable because it's a different vintage. And here, you expect that Cobra Beer, natural ingredients, natural process, fermentation, in mass qualities. Each year's crops are different, and we have to make sure it tastes exactly the same. It's not easy, and it's a challenge to do that. This is the most important one to me, is an extraordinary brand inspires people to become loyal brand champions. That's, if you're alumni of St. Cross College, are so proud of St. Cross, they are brand champions for your college forever, forever. Of Oxford University, proud alumni forever. And you know, in the case of a product like Cobra, it's like, go into a restaurant, can I have 2 Cobras, please? Sorry, we don't sell Cobra. You get up and walk out, go to the next restaurant. You know, if it's out of stock, you're disappointed. You seek out your brand. You love your brand. You love your brand. If you can get people to love your brand, you've cracked it. And I've cracked it with Cobra Beer. It's genuinely a product people love, and I'm very proud of that. And finally, an extraordinary brand delivers extraordinary profits. No point doing this unless you're profitable. If I show you one more of those ads.
In India, we are famous for being ingenious. Hey, come our Cobra bottled beer, brewed for a full flavor, but with less gas.
And this is just a message I wanted. My wife is South African, and this is so true. The whole, going back to the partnership model, that if you want to travel fast, travel alone, travel far, travel together. And finally, I mentioned mission earlier, to brew the finest ever Indian beer and make it a global beer brand, but I think more important than the mission is the vision, which is your attitude. And this, I think, sums up our attitude. It's almost like a definition of entrepreneurship, where you aspire and achieve against all odds with integrity. It's coming up with an idea, wanting to make it happen, having all the odds stacked against you, little or no means, and you go out there and you go and do it, and most importantly, do it in the right way with integrity. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we now have a few minutes for questions. And by the way, ask me about, this is the Cobra Beer. You can ask me about, as I said, politics, geopolitics, anything. Yes, please.
Can we talk about confidence?
Yes.
I imagine that confidence is a part of boldness. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how confidence developed? Were you confident at the beginning? Were you naturally confident? Or can you pinpoint moments along your journey where your confidence grew and evolved?
Do you all hear that in the back? Confidence? So I'll answer that. I mean, we'll try and answer these questions as briefly as possible. We can add many in as possible. I'm an alumnus of London Business School. They made me an honorary fellow recently. And for their alumni magazine a few years ago, they said, can you tell us, write an article of when did you first realize you had the traits of being an entrepreneur? And I thought about it very carefully. And actually, it was when I was 8 years old. My father was commanding his battalion of Gurkhas posted down in Kerala, in South India. And I went to a Jesuit school, Loyola School. It's still the most famous school in Kerala. And my teacher once sent me to the headmaster, to Father Kuncheria, in his robes, because I'd taken comic books into school one day. And he caned me for taking comic books to school as an 8-year-old boy. That's how strict it was. And suddenly there was a diktat in the school. Obviously everything was being taught in English. The language in Kerala is Malayalam, South Indian language. So everyone will now have to learn Malayalam as a second language. So I went to the Malayalam class, 8-year-old, and I said, what am I doing here? I don't want to learn this language. My father's going to be posted here for 2 years, then he's going to be somewhere else. It's going to be of no use to me for the rest of my life. What a waste of time. So I switched off in class. I went back to my parents and I complained. I said, why am I being forced to learn Malayalam? I don't want to learn it. You've just been caned by the headmaster. You'll be caned again. Go back and learn Malayalam. So I went back to the class again. I said, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is just... And I got annoyed. And I complained to my parents again. This time they got annoyed. And they said, we're going to report you to the headmaster. So then I went back. I said, I can go on complaining. This is not going to get anywhere. Then I went back to my parents. I said, look, I understand this. There are many other officers' children. There are expats from other states who are corporate, whose companies, they're posted with their companies in the state, from other parts of India. Hindi is a national language of India. I'm going to have to learn Hindi as a second language later on in high school. Why can't I learn Hindi? Because they don't have a Hindi teacher. Go and learn Malayalam. I said, why can't they get a Hindi teacher? Just go and learn Malayalam. My father went to the headmaster and said, my son has had this idea. I think it might be a good idea. Within a month, a Hindi teacher had been employed, and there were 26 of us in that class learning Hindi. Now that was as an 8-year-old that I rebelled, but I realized in life, complaining and problems don't go together. Problems exist, but what you need is problem, solution, action. And you fast forward to when I was president of the CBI, in the worst crisis since the Second World War with the global pandemic and then the Ukraine war. And the proudest 2 years in my business career was being president of CBI, leading British industry in that time of crisis. And it's that attitude that started as an 8-year-old or showed itself as an 8-year-old of problem, solution, action that made me an effective president of CBI. Thank you for the question. Okay, next question. This is a great start. Who wants to go next? Yes, Master.
I would like to ask you how you picked yourself up at those points you described, the 3 times that your business was nearly lost for you. Which was the worst of the 3 times? And can you remember your lowest point and how you climbed back up and got back in the fight?
Yeah, I think the worst by far was the last time when it was very existential. And you literally go to sleep at night thinking everything I've worked for is just disappearing in front of my eyes. And then you wake up the next day and you find a solution. Now, the 3 times I nearly lost my business, again, if you think about this in a global context, just go back to 9/11. Who predicted 9/11? No one. And it transformed the world. Financial crisis. Her Majesty the Queen opened up a building for the London School of Economics in 2009, just after the financial crisis. And she said to all the economists lined up there, why didn't any of you spot it? Literally, she said that. How many economists spotted the financial crisis? Less than a handful. COVID pandemic. How many people spotted the COVID pandemic? I was in the House of Lords, and one of my colleagues of Russian origin, who was a friend of mine, I said, is Putin going to invade Ukraine? She said, never. He invaded the next day. Yeah. So I'm saying I was in Israel on a parliamentary delegation. I've been many times to Israel. I was in Israel in May last year. Spent a day on the Gaza border. We were really disappointed with the political situation in Israel. But security? Not one of us. And there were seasoned Israel hands there. Thought what would just happen 4 months later, October the 7th. So these crises, 9 times out of 10, come out of the blue. All 3 of mine, I didn't predict. It's how you deal with it that matters. And the 3 things that saw me through each of those crises was, 1, having a strong brand. The Cobra Beer brand was very resilient. 2nd, the support of your team. So people like Samson Sohail, whose picture I showed, your loyal team will stand by you during a time of crisis. Family, I met my wife 1 year after I started Cobra. She's been by my side through all this, and I wouldn't be here talking to you without her support. And finally, the 3rd thing is, when you are in a corner, it is so tempting to take shortcuts. It is so tempting to do the wrong thing, just to survive. And can you, in that sense, still play with a straight bat? Can you behave with integrity? And the best definition of integrity was Rowan Williams, when he was Archbishop of Canterbury, came to visit the Zoroastrian Center, and I come from the Zoroastrian Parsi community, the smallest community in the world, and I'm patron of the community in the UK, and he came to the center in Harrow, and I made the opening, as a patron, the opening welcome address, and he gave his lecture. And in the lecture, he said, Lord Bilimoria has mentioned the word integrity 3 times, and the Zoroastrian Parsi community are renowned for their integrity. He said the word integrity comes from the Latin and Greek words integer integrum, which mean wholeness. You cannot practice integrity if you're fragmented in front of the light. You can only practice integrity if you're whole and complete. So, strong brand, family and team support, integrity, and you can get through any crisis. Thank you. Next question. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just a sort of double question quickly. Could you tell us a bit more about your journey to going to the House of Lords, the position you got there? And sort of similar to that, given that you're also in the House of Lords and you're dealing with global issues.
Yep.
And then at the same time, you have your own businesses and working alongside that. How is it possible to manage so much information and so much?
Okay.
To some level, so much going on in one moment.
Yep.
The day is only 24 hours. So.
Okay. So time is very stretchable. No, I'm joking. But so to answer your question, I got involved in debating at the age of 14 at boarding school. I then carried on debating at college in India. I then carried on debating at Cambridge University, where I was the vice president of the union. And for 2 years, I led the Cambridge University debating team against Oxford in the annual varsity debate. And don't ask Oxford the result. My opponent was Michael Gove, and we became good friends. We're still good friends. And so I was very interested in politics, and I had the chance to become an MP soon after I started Cobra Beer, but I decided not to, and thank God I didn't. And then this opportunity to become a member of the House of Lords, where as an independent crossbench peer, I can take part actively in Parliament, but I can also do my other things, including running my business. And I love politics, and being independent, I can say what I want to, challenge government, and I've been very, very active. Last Thursday, I spoke 3 times in one day. I mean, that's very rare to speak in 3 debates in a day. The opportunity came up, so I did it. So I love it, I'm passionate about it. And the second part of your question, second question was, how do I do all the things that I do? You know, how do I run my business, be a chancellor of the university, be president of CBI, you know, be an active member of parliament? I tell you how you do it. One is you genuinely got to love everything you do. And I count myself seriously lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity to do all the things that I do. I mean, I just love it. I could be in parliament all the time. I could be in academia all the time. I could be in my business all the time. I love all of them. So that's the most important thing. Secondly, you need a lot of help and support. And I've got a fantastic team supporting me, including my interns. I've got 2 of my interns over here. And, you know, they help me do the research for my speeches and things. And, you know, so I get help from them. They learn from me. So it's a lot of help that enables me to do what I do. And then the third thing is an important aspect to your question, is you have to have the ability to switch on and off things. So from here, I'm going to my next thing. I switch off from being in this world to what I'm doing next. And from there, I'm going to the next thing. I'll switch off from that and on. And it's very difficult to when you get bad news about something or you're unhappy with something you're doing now. Then you've got to go and deal with the next thing is completely unconnected and compartmentalize that and say, I'll deal with that later. I've got to deal with this now. The ability to switch on and off as well. Now, we've got time. How many more hands? How many more people want to ask a question? Can I just see a show of hands of anyone else? So 2 of you. So let's take those 2 questions and then we'll conclude. So I take you first, sir.
Yes, you're a politician, you're a businessman, you understand the Indian market. You're a friend of Michael Gove's. When the Brexit referendum happened, we were told that India and Asia was going to fill the trade gap and we would see growth from those markets and this sort of thing. Can you talk to us about how difficult it is for the UK business to get into those markets and whether you feel there's any realistic prospect of new growth in the near future?
Yeah, there's no question about it. India is an emerging, not just economic superpower, global superpower. And there are 2 superpowers now, America and China. India will soon be one of them. I predict by 2060, India will be the biggest economy in the world. It's the fastest growing major economy in the world today. Our trade with India has grown significantly. I founded the UK India Business Council. I remember 20 years ago, our trade was £5 billion bilaterally. Today, it's £40 billion. And it's a fraction of what it should be. Our trade with China is almost £100 billion. So we should be doing a lot more. Our biggest trading partner by far is America, as one country, and our biggest trading partner by far is the European Union. That still makes up, 8 years after Brexit, 45% of our trade. Now, how many of you think, by the way, Brexit was a huge mistake and an act of self-harm? Can I just see a show of hands? Right, there we are. I get this everywhere. I wish we could take a photograph and send this to Michael Gove, my friend, for a start. You know, there is no question about it. Brexit was a big mistake. I was saying earlier, I lecture at the business school, at Cambridge Business School on the MBA program, and I do a 2-hour negotiations masterclass with Brexit as a case study and all the mistakes made. You know, it is just catastrophic how we did that 8 years ago. And we're still, you know, there's no benefit. The odd free trade deal, which we've done with Australia and New Zealand, which I played a part in, we're trying to complete one with India as well. So I think we need to get back closer to Europe. We can't do it in one shot. Maybe it's stage by stage, going through a Norway-type model, Switzerland, Norway, and then eventually rejoining. But there's no question about it. It was a big mistake. I could speak on for hours on this topic. Yes?
I just wanted to ask a very simple question about the choice of the name Cobra, because it has an association with being a poisonous snake. I noticed it didn't feature much in the advertising. I'm just interested in your thoughts.
Okay. We will conclude with this. I was waiting for that. Now, if you notice, I didn't mention it once in my presentation. And I'll tell you why. Because I will always get asked that question. So it is one of the big mistakes I made in my journey. You know, one of my favorite sayings is good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So in the early days, when the brewery said, look, you young boys don't know anything about the beer industry. You have no money, no experience. We offered our 2 brand names. You don't want them. Pals, dog food, knockout. You don't want it. Use your own brand name. We could have chosen any brand name. We went through hundreds of names, and we chose Panther. as in leopard, panther. The design by a British ad agency was the eye of a black panther. Very cool. I took the artwork, in those days physical artwork. When I landed in Bangalore, I said to the brewery, who are your printers? Introduced me, went to the printers, handed over the artwork. I then forgot about the name, I forgot about the label. I was focused on the liquid and getting the beer right, and all the bottles and the cartons. And it took over 3 months of sitting in Bangalore. I was staying with my aunt, Koltata. And one evening, 2 weeks before the beer was about to be bottled, it was maturing in the tanks. P&O containers had been ordered, date for shipment 2 weeks. And my partner Arjun was holding the fort in London, phoned me, Karan, I've got a problem. I'm trying to pre-sell the beer. And I said, well done, Arjun, head of the game. And he said, but I can't sell a single case. What's your problem? He said, they don't like the name Panther. I said, what? Who cares? No, they don't like the name Panther. They're refusing to buy the beer. I said, why don't they like the name Panther? He said, I don't know. So we debated this for a while. Who cares what they think? Who cares what they think? Yeah. And then I said, look, actually, you know what? There was a second choice name that came a close second, and we chose Panther. And I can't remember it. Go and look up the list. He said, I've already done that. It was Cobra. I said, yeah, I remember Cobra. We debated it a lot. And I said, go and ask them if they like the name Cobra, will they buy it? I'll go to the printers in the morning to see if the Panther labels have been printed. So on the way to the brewery the next morning, I rushed to the printers. Only time in my life I was hoping something was not done. Normally you're chasing things to be done. Have you printed those Panther labels? No, we're waiting for the brewery to tell us. Don't print them. By that evening, 24 hours, Arjun called me and said, they love the name Cobra. I phoned my brother Nadir in Hyderabad, who had his own ad agency, really. I said, Nadir, I need your help. I got on the next plane to Hyderabad. His team downed tools, and we designed the Cobra label from scratch. And the rest is history. By the way, in the early days, we had a snake on the label. It was like a cartoon snake, not a scary snake. Then we dropped that, and we've never, ever featured the snake in any of our advertising for the reasons you said. And also in India, it's religious connotations as well. So we're very respectful of that. Now you think about it. Cobra. How many of you like the name Cobra, by the way? Can I just see a show of hands? Yeah, most people love it. It's short, it's sharp, it's punchy, it takes you back to India. It's our most valuable asset. I mean, in the early days, when I started 34 years ago, there were still retired British Army officers from India alive. I remember Cobra before the war in India. Delicious beer. Didn't exist. So when we celebrated we're going to celebrate our 25th anniversary and have these big celebrations, and we did some consumer research, and they said, what? You're only 25 years old? We thought you were 125 years old. We didn't celebrate our 25th anniversary. So it's been a great name, and as I said, my most valuable asset. It's been wonderful to be with all of you, and Master, thank you, St. Cross, thank you, Oxford, thank you very much.
So much inspiration, and I hope you've all taken away the 3 things that you need to succeed. You've certainly demonstrated that to us, and let's wish everyone the luck, the integrity, and the grit to do what you've done in their own field. So thank you so much, and I hope the rest of you will stay and join us for drinks afterwards.
Thank you very much.